Like, yeah, it is absolutely draining to be a moderator on like Twitch, YouTube, Reddit, whatever it is. It's not as much fun as you think. But let's get into the cast anyway. That's why I have no mods around here. We're completely unhinged. We are going to get some unhinged gamers, though, because we are back for Deniskia versus Core again. Core, on one of his most cozy civs, it is, of course, the Rus and Deniskia playing on the Byzantines. Ooh. Rus Byzantines. That is not a matchup you see very often, right? When Byzantines were starting to make their rise, Rus is still very bannable. Now, no one really cares about Rus, but Byzantines is like a top 2 ban in the current state of the game. So, kind of fun to see what this is going to play out on, because we're on Lipany. It looks like Dry Arabia because the spawns are weird, but this is Lipany. 2 ways to tell. Dry Arabia doesn't spawn cliffs, and also just a mere glance at the map and the berry count tells you that this is Lipany. Mods are gods. True bear morph. Like, you know, you get all that power, and all you have to deal with is non-stop spam in your inbox whenever you don't want it. What a deal. Let me update the title as well, because I think people are maybe getting a bit muddled. Sorry about that. I forgot to update the title. So, for those that are looking for more of the team games, they are going to be featuring on the channel in the coming days and the weeks. So, there's still plenty to come. 2TC, though. This is really old school out of Core. Right, like I say old school because I feel like a lot of the Rus players at the moment have been shifting back towards the old fast castle builds. Pro scouts even sometimes coming in. Oh, we can do predictions as well. I know you guys like those. So last time it was left. Okay, who will win? Is it going to be Core or is it going to be Deniskia? Deniskia is pretty good at the game, though, right? Like, he's been rising the ranks. He first came to my attention when someone was asking for people to, like, ask for advice on maps and whatever, and a lot of people were mentioning him. He's ranked 102nd in the world right now. Core is about 20th in the world. But Deniskia, it's been quite the rise for this lad from Kazakhstan. Previous seasons, he was ranked, like, 700, 800, 600, 400. This season, he's up in the top 100. This guy has kind of just come out of nowhere. I'm excited to see what's going to happen when we get into maybe some upcoming tournaments. Also cool to just see some other countries represented. Like, I remember in the later years when I was involved in Dota 2, the Kazakhstanis were really starting to come through. Whereas previously, like, no one would ever imagined it. And I think it's kind of the same maybe that we're going to see here. We've seen it with the Belarusians with Anatan. I might get to see it now with the Kazakhstans. So, Knights are coming out. I like this play from Core. It's one Knight to force a reaction. You don't want to be building more. This used to be a pretty powerful build with the old bounty system because you could garner enough gold to afford your first Knight without ever touching gold. This build's a bit different. I do wonder if he could have went Golden Gate, but I guess the concern is against Byzantines, they will play longbows and they'll be able to block you on your grabs. But he's definitely hunkering down for it. So Fast Castle build it is on both sides, in fact. Difference, of course, is that Deniskia is behind an economy. Now, he can supplement himself a little bit with the olive groves, with the gathering on the berries, but there's only so much that's going to do for you. And especially once the high trade house comes in, it's going to rocket the Rus economy because of that extra gold gathered. I want to mention the race for relics. Like, one side is going to have Grand Winery to send out the slow boys. The other can play into the Warrior Monks. I do think this is still going to be high trade house. Just because even on a tree line like this, it's probably going to be... I mean, if he comes out here, if he's ballsy about it, he could end up getting probably about 120 gold. If he slaps the bad boy down here, which I think there's just enough room, that's probably going to be about a 160, 170. And remember, you are just eventually going to get those extra tiers for the Rus now. The cool changes around the bounty system nerfed the early game bounty system, but overall, it was kind of a buff to the rest of the game. Now, of course, it's hard to measure that because something to keep in mind, guys, is when you nerf early game, although you may be substantially buffing late game, it's a ripple effect. If your early game is weaker, your presence in the later phase of the game is also weaker than it was. Because you can't build as big of an advantage over your opponent, right? That's kind of the interesting dynamics, is how, you know, it's true in a lot of games. I used to always say it in Dota 2, where it's like early mistakes ripple into bigger problems down the line. Unless you have comeback mechanics. And I would say, actually, like, I'm trying to think, guys, are there many RTSs that have really good comeback mechanics? AoE4s is more the defender advantage, right? I guess a lot of RTSs have that. And in fairness, it is usually a pretty good one for AoE4 because you have very strong defenses for the early ages, at least, like outposts, TCs, and keeps eventually. But in the late game, the comeback mechanic is more civ-driven. Like, do you have a big edge in H4? Palings? Wait, Deniskia. Well, he's going for the Paling's Explosion, which isn't a bad idea. Lombo follow-up damage should be decent enough. So ends up losing what? A Horseman, Lombo, make that 2 to kill a Knight. Ends up not being a good exchange. In fact, Core won't even lose the Knight. Yeah, he'll be able to garrison inside and stay safe. Needs to be careful here, though. No arrow slits means that this one Lombo could tickle away at the villagers, and some of them are heavily injured. Losing 1 or 2 villages won't be the end of the world, though, right? He's already up by over 12 villages. Other side of this, we have got more groves coming in, so Daniskia, no intent to go for a 2TC play. However, all the intent in the world to make it an ego chow with a Cav Civ. Heavy Cataphracts on the way. Okay, this is kind of cool. Core is already anticipating cavalry, though. Or rather, possibly Varangian. Varangian makes a lot of sense. I think this is maybe one of the more tricky things about this play by Byzantines. It has been growing in popularity, but the counter is still the same as it was against Varangian spam, right? Which is you build crossbows. Both of them are rushing towards their relics. You can see Daniskia already with the edge, though, courtesy of the fact that he already has the building, and the cost is 150. Meanwhile, on this side, you have to spend 200 wood, and then you have to spend 90 resources more per monk. Not to mention the fact that you have to wait a little bit longer. 35 seconds compared to 30. All right. How did you guys predict? I'm curious now. 68% for Core. Whoa, guys, calm down. All right, we're not on Socotra. It's not a guaranteed win. Cataphracts used more often by pros, especially in team games. New meta has risen. Possibly. Cataphracts can be a little bit finicky sometimes, right? Like, they're very expensive. They're hard to scale. Thank God they at least have a 1.60 movement speed instead of being something a little bit slower. I think Cataphracts have their place. It's not obviously a be-all end-all for every game. Varangian spam is still really strong in a lot of situations. But I especially like Cataphracts when you're playing against a Civ that's also going to play Knights, because Varangian will struggle there. And yours is just much more chunky. I do think the system of the first heal is still kind of a meme. If they wanted to make system of the first heal good, really good, just give an extra level to systems overall. Make it reach a cap of 6 instead of 5. That would make people choose it over Golden Horn Tower. Because Golden Horn Tower, especially when you go Western Contract, feels way too good. And yes, Berries, you're correct. You do get the tier 3 very quick. It is overall, like, Roos have been buffed. Roos, I am excited for the nerf feeling in the upcoming patch. Like, everyone's going to suffer from the harder to wall situations, but one example where Roos will feel really impacted by Season 9's build speed change is Socotra. Like, Roos are so good on Socotra because they quickly wall the entire map. It now moving up to taking 8 seconds instead of 4 seconds is going to be quite crippling for early walling on that map. Mesh also on the way, so I think we're getting prepped for a dive here. Cool. Funnily enough, is getting into the Mangonels. Makes sense. There is a lot of Lombos here. The tough part about being up against Lombos as well is like you can't just now go into Spears to counter the Cataphracts, right? It's another thing I like about Daniskia's play. It's the same reason why Lombo Horseman is so good in H2. Lombo Cataphracts makes a lot of sense for similar reasoning. The only downside, of course, is obviously the Cataphracts are going to just move way ahead of the Lombos. But it always gives you an immediate counter to Spearman to deal with these Catas. Relic Crab complete. 3-2 split. High Trade House, did you guys get your numbers in? I think it's time to spam those numbers in chat. Decap on the north side. We have got Knights roaming towards the base, and there is no full wall in, so that is kind of a trap waiting to happen there. Lombos are trying to press down here. There's still 7 villagers stuck in the area, and the Cataphracts are going to get the torches out as they dive in. Only 16 damage each, though. The Winter Fortress does have a Spring in placement, so this is not ideal for Daniskia. It's going to take a very long time to kill this. The Spring placement is already sniping down the Lombos. He should really be going after the Catas, though. Even Aristotle's getting added in. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a fan of this approach, right? Like, the thing that can kill you here is the Catas. I guess it's just very hard to kill these guys with Spring placement. It's 40 damage against a 360 health unit. Looks like the army needs to react quicker. First Knight is going to arrive. That's going to draw some fire. Second wave is on the way, though. The Cataphracts, are they going to be able to deal with this? With the trample, they could actually just move straight onto the crossbows. And guys, this is another reason why you need spears against Cataphracts, even when there's Lombos. If he sees that mango and tramples onto it, it's dead. Here goes, trample in, sidestep with the crossbows, but not good enough here. Free access onto the mangonel. Siege has been countered. Lombos are being reduced, but so too has the crossbow count. Just 5 remaining for Core, and Diniskia in a very comfortable lead here. Yes, he's economically behind, but the military presence is the threat. So what Core now needs to do is ensure that if he loses these fights, he doesn't now lose the villages. Because he is ahead drastically, right? We're talking about a 30 villager lead here. But militarily, it's looking a bit shaky. These cataphracts are deceptively impactful. Diniskia needs to rebalance his economy because he should have a much bigger military lead here. Final number on the High Trade House was 156. Oh, I lord you. I just saw that number. 1 off. This man knows his roost. Am I the only one feeling like Diniskia done a really good job on that fight, but now he's made a mistake by backing up? He has gone 2TC, but I think you have to go free. We've seen this type of build by Byzantines before, where they try for the hit, it doesn't connect to kill, but it does damage, and then they come back and boom. 2TC is just going to leave you behind, though, right? It's already 2v2. So, would really love to see him just actively gather the stone, go for free. He's definitely got the farm count for it. Beautiful thing about doing this as well is you leverage your food really well, and by gathering all this food on farms anyway, you're still going to end up with surplus resources to build an army via the olive oil. Looks like we have got Limitane on the way. Pretty healthy army, right? Like, Limitane counters everything Core is doing. Weirdly enough, Core is also going for siege engineering. System level is up at 3. So remember, that is going to be a nice, healthy 18% buff. So you kind of have to, like, I mean, you could round it up because it's over 50. So 20% on 50 here, right? So that's an extra 10 villages, roughly. Not too bad. Obviously, we do have the Wooden Fortress effect to give 20% more and wood drop off, but Core's only got 16 woodworkers. It's very heavy on the food. Blacksmith issues are being fixed. Kazuyohan will be happy to see that. I wonder if Cataphracts is still the play, though. Well, the weird part to me, actually, is, guys, he got teardrop shields and hasn't built anything for it. Right? No Limitane, no Varangians. So you're not building units that utilize this. God, my brain is now like, have I forgotten something about teardrop shields? I'm not forgetting something it does with Cataphracts, am I? Oh, wait, yeah, it's +1. Sorry, yes, I'm an idiot. It's the +1 armor. Against crossbows, though, is that a big deal? I mean, you are pretty chunky, right? Like, I guess it's not too bad in the night affair, but... Does anyone else kind of feel like teardrop shields for Cataphracts giving +1/+1 is... I don't want to see outright underwhelming. I'm going to get a lot of flack for that. But compared to the alternatives, it does feel a little, right? Like, Limitane getting 15% movement speed is nuts. The attack speed for Varangian is great. I guess it is making this unit more difficult to slay, which is very important for this civ. Do you guys ever notice they get different shields, by the way? That's true. It is buffing several. I agree. Like, overall, all-encompassing, great. But for this particular strat for Diniskia, teardrop shields is kind of funky. I really thought he was going to go Limitane because it just counters everything Core's doing. Osman now being prepped by Core. Yeah, everything that Core is doing is just begging for Limitane right now. Diniskia stays the course, though. I think they just realized they have sabers. Wait, are those sabers? I mean, that counts as a saber, right? It's not a scimitar, I don't think. It's not curved enough. This is what I was talking about in my previous video about like the definition of videos being close. You see what I mean? Like, you do feel like you just miss out on so much when you're far out, right? It's tough because whenever you're like trying to create a spectator sport, you want to anchor the view perspective so it doesn't alienate the person. When you swap too much, it gets confusing, right? Yeah, cool. He's in trouble here. Pulls a few militia. 24 crossbows to work with, but the Landsec count at 9. If he skips for a second, if he doesn't look, and those guys gap close, whole army goes down. Cataphracts could actually give him the opening. Trample comes through. Reaches the crossbows on the backside. It's going to start a step away. The Lombos need to move in deeper, though. Cool. Could this be the end of him? Deniskia looking very confident in his current position. Crossbows just not able to really kill the cataphracts quick enough. There's still a decent count of them, 10 in the enemy base. Lombo's now able to trade out the crossbows, and it means that the cataphracts can look for the economy on the back. Lombos do need to be a little bit careful though. The knights are starting to trickle out. Trample now off cooldown. Core can surge again. Does he want to though? Seems like he's not going to go for it. Instead, he's going to back up a little here. Deniskia. The trample's like, I don't know, man. Like, do you just go for the trade on the backside? The Lombos are going to get dispatched here. And Core, are you kidding me? Okay, so let's dissect what just happened here. Deniskia, for a start, the Lombos were attacking the wrong unit. They need to be dealing with the crossbows. They were dealing with the front line. The follow-up was even worse because the Lombos camped underneath the Kremlin. The entire fight happened underneath this, with the sprinkle shots popping off. Deniskia took a fight at possibly the single worst place in Core's base. And now, despite the good plays early on by Deniskia, he's a mile behind. The loss of military there. Those cataphracts are not cheap. The Lombos also not cheap. Remember, these stats here are not indicative of the outcome because Oliver doesn't track in these metrics, right? He expended a lot more to that fight and came out a lot worse for it. Fortunate mistake by Deniskia. He's going to look to go once more, but I have a feeling it might be too late. Horsemen have started to build up, and Core doesn't feel threatened enough to even reinvest. He's stockpiling resources. Imperial Age is about to be on the way for the Rus. And that should just end this game. Like, you're already going to struggle to dive. The keep drop on point from Core means he's not going to be easily dealt with when he goes to this tech. I don't know, man. It's kind of tricky, right? Like, was this keep here originally and we just didn't glance it? You could argue he should have been rotating to the south side, but that's a hard call from his vision. But that's why, like, with the cataphracts, you split and look, right? Like, I think Deniski's best move there would have been to have taken about 8 of his cataphracts and ran east and west and just found villagers. Because then you turn it into a macro game, and Byzantines aren't too bad at playing that. Obviously, you're still a bit paranoid about Imperial Age, because Russo won the kings when it gets to that stage. But you do have ways of fighting back. I do feel for Deniskia, because like this matchup almost looks like it should just be a win for the Byzantines based on what we saw a few minutes ago. But you do tend to rush in this matchup in some cases, because Rus, I've watched them against Byzantines countless times in the late game. Even before the Byzantines got all these nerfs towards their Limitai shield wall and the Costa Streltsy, Rus was still bending them over a barrel. I still think that Lombos is meant to be the answer there, but you kind of run into the same issue which English do in this matchup, which is because of the banded arms, you can't easily counter the Streltsies, but the enemy can counter you, right? So like they can build mangoes against your Longbow mass. Tech up complete. Cool. He did go for the high armory, and that banded arms is already on the way. Foreign Engineering Company in response from Deniskia. Correct call here. He needs the volley on the longbows. The extra movement speed on the lance decks is really nice as well. And of course, Nester Bees might be a potential MVP. It's going to be hard to utilize against Springhorns, but if your opponent's sleeping and you catch 40 Streltsy with like 4 Nester Bees, it could just turn a fight. And the Byzantines have a massive farm transition. I mean, I wouldn't call it massive. It's decent. It's 28. But on the other side, Core isn't that far behind, right? He's at 11, and I think this is where he's switching to wood, right? Yeah, 58 people on wood right now. So he's really not that far behind. And for a guy who's this many villages ahead, he can afford to delay that transition. Horseman raid on the backside is going to draw some ire. A few more villagers do get sniped out. Remember, it was never a free TC transition. This get always stuck on the 2. That's why this feels like the game is over, right? Like that cataphract longbow dive was meant to be a game ender. And funnily enough, it was. Just not the way people would have expected. Now Core marches into the base. Elite crossbowmen. They've got their gold hats in. Lombos trying to defend their home here. Volley has already been activated, but already runs out. And guys, that was veterancy on Lombos. No elite tech. So not as much DPS as he could have got, but he needed every little he had. Cataphracts are now trickling out. Lance deck are already in it. They just need to start swinging. Streltsy have started to arrive here, folks. With the Bardicius, they can swing pretty hard. Remember, this unit doesn't always go into melee, but when it does, it hits even harder than when it shoots. You're seeing that correctly, 62 damage. Crossbows are going to have to reset, so Lombo's able to get a temporary pushback here, but the Horseman spam is now coming from core. And this detail, this is the nail in the coffin. The mangonels aren't counterable now. Deniskia, he needs access to new gold sources to keep pumping into the cataphracts. He has 2.4k left. No mango towers, Timberlane. You have to wait another game for that. Deniskia is an honorable soldier. He'd never resort to OP mango towers. It could have helped a bit, right? It's a good call. I think it just kind of got oversighted in this particular game. And now it may simply be too late. Deniskia down to 15 military. The dive is about to reach his olive groves. If this gets shut down, he's dead. It's his only real source of food right now. And with Horseman on the way, I can't help but feel the only thing that can happen is it getting shut down permanently. Mangonel Tower is now on the way, but unfortunately a little bit too late as the Bombards have already started to arrive into the base. Keep is being sieged on the north side. Double Bombard on it means it's not going to last very long here. And I think at this point, Deniskia is just scrambling for a mistake. Core is kind of in a comfortable position though, right? Like when you get this far ahead, you can just kind of stand there doing jumping jacks for a bit, and you still should have control of the game, right? It's a very difficult lead to throw. Has at least got the Mango Town now, but the Crossbow Mass is no longer there. It's just Mass Horsemen, and the Horsemen, they get in on it. With no castle defense here on the north side, there's nothing to protect. Over half of Deniskia's economy. 45 villages now idle, barely any working beyond that, as he's only got 67 in total. Deniskia, these are the gaps in his gathering he cannot afford when he's this far behind. It's now double the economy for Core. Nice siege under landmarks. Golden Hunt out, going to be brought down soon. Olival income is also underwhelming, folks. Only 318. We talked about this. Deniskia never really completed the farm transition. 28 is not a late game economy. Meanwhile, on the other side, Core is now up to 44. That's the number you want. Somewhere between 45 and probably 60. With Byzantines, you can lean higher because, of course, you generate the olive oil. He's generating it too slow here. Biology is on the way, but you've already got mini biology as Core. He's got the Boy's Fortitude. He could probably go for the extra unit tech himself with 4k gold. Villagers have to get the shivs out just to defend themselves. I think he even activated the Akrator on some of these, so we'll be able to eventually brush away these horsemen, but at the tail end of the fight, it's going to be another 10 villagers dead. Actually, more than that. It's going to be about 20% of Deniskia's economy likely to flop. What was he at before? Was it 68? Now down to 55. The Bombards now into the primary TC. Damn. I mean, Core is just farming it up right now. Like I said, Deniskia is no pushover. Hitting rank 102, I think he even peaked at something like round 80, is no small feat, right? It's definitely something to be praised. But Core, even when he doesn't have that much time to play, man, comes back in after being missing for a while. He's like, I need to claim that top spot. Maybe he's even going to try to take the #1 away from BC at the end of the season, because I think we've only got about like maybe 2 weeks left. And that first place spot is coveted. I mean, if BC keeps it, I think it'll be his 5th first place finish in 8 seasons. Villager pool now, but I mean, under Mangonels and Streltsy nearby, this is a death sentence. Let me know what you think of these guys, though. I mean, it's kind of cool the way that Deniskia played this. An intriguing strategy with the Cataphract Lombos. Didn't quite deliver what he was expecting, but I think the issue is more in execution than idea. Deniskia's ideas seem solid. His approach, I think, is what killed him in this game, and Core's experience carries him through.